Imagine you've just survived this massive hurricane.
Right.
Your power is completely out, your roof is caved in, and the August heat is it's suffocating.
Sounds miserable.
Right. So you drive miles just to find a gas station that's actually open, and you go in to buy a simple bag of ice. And the guy behind the counter looks you dead in the eye and asks for $10
Oh, wow.
for one bag of ice. Does that make you angry?
I mean, of course it does.
Yeah, exactly. But why? Why does that feel so fundamentally wrong to us?
Well, it's a reaction that happens almost automatically, right? You make that judgment without ever really stopping to look at the mental operating system running in the background.
Exactly. We all have this hidden moral code, but we rarely hit pause to actually examine the source code of it.
Yeah, we just react.
Right. Well, today on the deep dive, that is exactly our mission for you. We take your stack of sources, articles, research, brilliant books, and extract the hidden insights you actually need to know. And today, we are pulling the most important nuggets from Michael Sandel's just frankly groundbreaking exploration of justice. We are going to expose the hidden architecture behind your moral outrage.
And just to set the stage for you here, this is not going to be some, abstract ivory tower lecture.
Oh, definitely not.
We are going to test your internal moral compass against some of the most extreme real-world situations imaginable. We're talking life or death survival at sea, massive Wall Street financial scandals, and, like you just mentioned, the chaotic aftermath of natural disasters.
Right. We're dropping these ideas into the messy, complicated real world. And let's actually stick with that hurricane scenario for a second, because history gives us a perfect test case for this.
Yeah, Hurricane Charley.
Yes. Back in the summer of 2004, Hurricane Charley just roared out of the Gulf of Mexico and absolutely devastated Florida. We're talking 22 lives lost, $11 billion in damage.
Just massive destruction.
Total destruction. And in the immediate aftermath, this huge debate about price gouging erupted.
Because the specifics of what actually happened are what really forced the debate. It wasn't just, the ice. Because of downed trees, you suddenly had contractors offering to clear roofs for $23,000.
$23,000.
Right. Small generators that usually sold for $250 were suddenly marked up to $2,000.
Jeez. The one that really makes my blood boil, honestly, is this 77-year-old woman who was fleeing the hurricane with her elderly husband and handicapped daughter.
Okay.
She was charged $160 a night for a motel room that normally goes for $40.
Okay.
I mean, it just feels incredibly predatory.
It does. It's a completely natural, visceral reaction to feel angry hearing that.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the underlying mechanics, impartially to understand what justice really means here.
Okay, so what's the other side?
Well, free market economists like Thomas Sowell, for example, actually argue that the term price gouging is emotionally powerful but economically meaningless.
Economically meaningless. I mean, tell that to the 77-year-old woman paying 4 times the normal rate.
Right. But from the strict free market perspective, there is no such thing as a just price, magically ordained by nature. Prices are merely a reflection of supply and demand.
So the high prices are just normal to them.
So Dole pointed out that higher prices for ice and generators in a disaster zone actually serve a vital function. They incentivize suppliers from other states to produce more of those goods, load up their trucks, and literally drive into the danger zone.
Oh, I see.
High prices naturally resolve the shortage.
Okay, but then you have the counter-argument, which was passionately voiced by Charlie Crist, who was Florida's Attorney General at the time. He essentially said that this isn't a normal free market situation.
Right, because of the storm.
Exactly. A normal market requires willing buyers freely electing to enter the marketplace. But in an emergency, you're under duress. When you're fleeing a deadly storm, purchasing safe lodging is basically forced.
You don't have a choice.
Right. Christ argued that the level of greed it takes to capitalize on someone else's suffering is just unconscionable.
What's fascinating here is how a single $10 bag of ice instantly forces us to collide with 3 entirely distinct pillars of justice.
3 pillars.
Yeah. When we argue about what's right, we're usually arguing from one of 3 perspectives. First, maximizing welfare. That's the economist's view of increasing overall prosperity and supply.
Okay.
Second, respecting freedom. The idea that individuals should freely choose what value to place on goods without interference.
Like the free market.
Exactly. And third, promoting virtue, the moral outrage against greed, and the belief that a healthy society simply shouldn't reward people who prey on the desperate.
Okay, let's unpack this. Specifically that third pillar, virtue, because I want to test that against the 2008 financial crisis bailouts.
Oh, boy.
Right. Wall Street firms made billions on these incredibly reckless, complicated investments. The market tanked, ordinary people lost their retirements, and the government had to step in with massive bailouts just to prevent a total economic collapse.
Which was incredibly painful for the public to swallow.
Oh, completely.
But they reluctantly supported the bailouts initially, because it was a decision based on that first pillar, maximizing overall welfare.
Right, to save the economy.
Yeah, letting the banks fail would have destroyed the global economy. But the real outrage sparked right after the ink dried.
It was an absolute firestorm. American International Group AIG received a massive infusion of taxpayer funds. We're talking $173 billion.
A staggering amount of money.
And almost immediately, they paid out $165 million in bonuses to their executives.
Wow.
The very same executives who had precipitated the crisis. 73 employees got bonuses of $1 million or more.
And suddenly, this wasn't about the welfare of the economy anymore. It offended our sense of what philosophers call moral desert.
Moral desert.
Yeah, it's the deeply ingrained idea that people should only be rewarded for actual hard work, good choices, and positive contributions, not reckless gambling. Using tax dollars to reward failure felt like a complete violation of virtue.
But the way the CEOs defended themselves is what's truly mind-boggling.
How so?
When they were dragged before Congress, they claimed they had done everything right with the information they had at the time. They insisted they were just victims of a financial tsunami that was entirely beyond their control.
Oh, I remember that.
But let's follow that logic. If a tsunami, uncontrollable bad weather is to blame for the disastrous years, how can those exact same executives claim that the massive bonuses they received during the boom years were earned by their own unique genius?
Right, you can't have it both ways.
Exactly. If the weather is to blame when the sun goes down, you don't get to claim you made the sun shine.
Exactly. It's a profound contradiction. If success is dictated by systemic forces beyond your control, then the massive rewards in the good times are just as unearned as the massive losses in the bad times.
But situations like the AIG bailout are so messy. I mean, there's so much politics, so much PR spin and corporate doublespeak.
Yeah, it's a lot of noise.
How can we even figure out what our baseline morals are when there's so much real-world noise blocking the signal?
Well, that is precisely why philosophers love to use extreme hypotheticals.
Okay.
To truly understand the mechanics of our moral operating system, we have to strip away all the complexities of the real world, the politics, the public relations, and look at raw, terrifying choices.
I'm ready.
Imagine you are the driver of a trolley car, hurtling down a track at 60 miles an hour. Up ahead, you see 5 workers on the track. You try to stop, but the brakes are completely dead.
Oh, no.
If you hit those 5 workers, they will absolutely die. But then you notice a side track to the right. There's only 1 worker on that track. You can turn the steering wheel, switch to the side track, killing the 1 worker but sparing the 5. What do?
I mean, it's terrible, but you have to turn, right?
Most people say that.
Yeah, the vast majority of people say they would turn. The math seems rock solid. 5 is greater than 1. Maximizing welfare means saving as many lives as possible.
Right. But let's change the parameters slightly to see if that math actually holds up.
Okay.
This time, you aren't the driver. You are an onlooker standing on a bridge overlooking the track. The runaway trolley is coming. Brakes are dead. 5 workers ahead.
Same setup.
Right. But this time, there is no side track at all. The only way to stop the trolley is to drop a heavy weight onto the tracks.
Yeah.
And standing right next to you, leaning over the bridge, is a very heavy man.
Wait.
If you give him a firm push, he will fall onto the tracks, blocking the trolley. He will die, but the 5 workers will be saved. Do you push him?
Wow. See, that's where my brain completely rejects the math. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Pushing the man feels terribly wrong.
But why? The math is exactly the same. Sacrifice 1 life to save 5.
It's the intent. It's the mechanism of the action. Turning a steering wheel feels like managing a tragic accident that's already in progress. But pushing a man with your bare hands, that feels like outright murder.
Right.
You are actively grabbing an innocent bystander and using him as a human shield. It feels like a fundamental violation of his rights as a human being.
And that tension between the cold math of saving lives and the inherent rights of the individual is exactly what we see when we move out of the realm of hypotheticals and into reality. History actually gave us a real-world trolley problem in 1884.
Yes, the case of the Mignonette. This is just deeply unsettling.
There really is.
It was an English ship that went down in a storm in the South Atlantic. 4 men escaped in a small lifeboat. The captain, Thomas Dudley, the first mate, Edwin Stevens, a sailor named Edmund Brooks, and the cabin boy, a 17-year-old orphan named Richard Parker.
And they were stranded over 1,000 miles from land.
Literally the middle of nowhere.
Right. They had 2 cans of turnips. No fresh water. After nearly 3 weeks at sea, having exhausted their meager food, they were starving. Richard Parker, the young cabin boy, had actually ignored advice and drank seawater.
Oh, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, he was extremely sick, lying in the corner of the boat, slipping into a coma. On the 19th day, Captain Dudley suggested drawing lots to see who should die so the others might live.
But Brooks refused, so they didn't do it.
Right.
But then, on the 20th day, Dudley and Stevens decided they couldn't wait anymore. Dudley said a prayer, told the boy his time had come, and killed him with a penknife.
It's just brutal.
For 4 days, the 3 men, even Brooks, who had objected initially, survived by feeding on the blood and body of the cabin boy.
And then, on the 24th day, they were miraculously rescued. They returned to England, were arrested, and freely confessed, claiming they acted out of absolute necessity.
Right.
Their moral defense was based entirely on the math. Given the dire circumstances, wasn't it necessary to sacrifice one weakened, dying boy who had no dependents in order to save 3 men who had wives and children waiting for them?
But the cannibalism, it's just visceral horror. I hear the defense, and mathematically, 3 lives saved versus 1 life lost makes sense on a chalkboard.
Yeah, on paper.
But eating the cabin boy feels undeniably like murder. Where is the line? Does a simple calculation of costs and benefits override the fundamental right of a 17-year-old boy to not be murdered?
And that exact friction introduces us to one of the most powerful and potentially dangerous philosophical frameworks ever invented, utilitarianism.
Utilitarianism.
Founded by the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century. Utilitarianism was an attempt to completely remove these messy, inconsistent emotions from our moral dilemmas.
Right. Bentham's idea is incredibly seductive in its simplicity. He argued that all human beings are governed by 2 sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. Therefore, he said, the highest principle of morality is whatever maximizes utility, which he defined as the overall balance of pleasure over pain or happiness over suffering for the greatest number of people.
He essentially tried to reduce morality to an algebraic equation. Add up all the benefits, subtract all the costs, and whatever yields the highest positive number is the legally and morally correct action.
Think about what that actually means if you apply it strictly, though. Like, think about your own daily commute.
Okay.
Bentham actually proposed a pauper management system where beggars would be forcefully rounded up off the streets and put into self-financing workhouses.
Wait, forcefully rounded up just for being homeless?
Yes, because encountering a homeless person on the street causes the general public pain, either the pain of sympathy for tender-hearted people or the pain of disgust for hard-hearted people.
Oh, wow.
Bentham calculated that locking them away reduces the public's pain more than it hurts the beggars. So mathematically, it maximizes overall societal happiness.
Which perfectly exposes the first massive flaw of utilitarianism. Its complete failure to respect individual rights.
Absolutely.
If the only thing that matters is the aggregate happiness of the majority, the individual becomes utterly disposable. We are forced to consider, the ancient Roman practice of throwing Christians to the lions in the Colosseum.
Oh, God.
Yes, the Christian suffers excruciating pain. But think of the collective ecstasy of 50,000 cheering spectators. Does the math of utilitarianism actually justify that horror simply because the massive crowd's pleasure outweighs the single victim's pain?
Or think about the famous Ursula K. Le Guin story, The Ones Who Walked Away from Omelas.
Oh, that's a brilliant example.
It paints a picture of a perfectly happy utopian city. No war, no disease, pure joy. But the strict condition of this entire city's happiness is that one single child must be kept in a miserable windowless cellar, malnourished and neglected. Everyone in the city knows the child is there, but they also know that if they comfort the child, all the prosperity of their city will instantly vanish. Is the happiness of the multitude worth the intentional torture of an innocent child?
Most people's moral intuition recoils at that.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the second major flaw in Bentham's theory. The idea of a common currency of value.
Meaning what, exactly?
Utilitarianism requires us to translate every moral good, every human life, every ounce of suffering into a single measurable scale,
Uh,
usually dollars, so we can actually do the cost-benefit analysis.
and this is where the corporate world gives us some absolutely staggering reality checks.
Oh, for sure.
In the Czech Republic, the government was considering raising taxes on cigarettes. Philip Morris, the tobacco company, actually commissioned a cost-benefit analysis to prove that smoking is financially good for the country.
Wait, financially good?
Yes. They calculated that while smokers impose higher medical costs while alive, they die early.
Oh my.
Therefore, the government actually saves a mass amount of money on healthcare, pensions, and housing for the elderly. They calculated the net gain to the Treasury was $147 million a year because their customers were dying prematurely.
It reveals the cold sociopathic nature of pure utilitarian logic. When you remove the human element, you can justify almost anything on a spreadsheet.
Right, and it gets even worse. Look at the Ford Pinto case from the 1970s.
The exploding card.
Yeah, the Pinto had a design flaw where its gas tank was prone to explode if it was rear-ended. More than 500 people died in these fiery crashes.
That's horrifying.
During the lawsuits, a memo emerged showing that Ford engineers had conducted a cost-benefit analysis before deciding whether to recall the car. They figured out it would cost them $137 per car to install a simple plastic baffle that would make the gas tank safe.
So why didn't they install it? I mean, $137 is nothing.
Because they literally put a dollar value on human life. They estimated that fixing the tanks would prevent 180 deaths and 180 burn injuries. They assigned a value of $200,000 per dead customer and $67,000 per injury.
You're kidding.
No. When they did the math, paying out the settlements for the dead and injured was actually cheaper than spending the $137 per car to fix the problem. So they just let people burn.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, why does that math make us feel sick? It's because human life and dollars are incommensurable. They cannot be measured on the same scale.
Exactly. Trying to measure human dignity in dollars and cents is like trying to measure the temperature of a room using a tape measure. You're using the completely wrong instrument for the reality you're trying to capture.
Which means if utilitarian math leaves us feeling horrified and pure free market freedom allows for predatory price gouging in a hurricane, we are forced to return to the third pillar of justice, virtue.
Right, cultivating moral character.
But how do we actually measure virtue in a society?
It's so abstract compared to a spreadsheet.
It is, but it has very real consequences. Take the 2009 Pentagon debate over the Purple Heart.
Okay.
Since 1932, the medal had been awarded to soldiers physically wounded or killed by enemy action. But with hundreds of thousands of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, advocates argued that psychological injuries were just as real and debilitating as physical ones.
So they asked for the Purple Heart to cover PTSD.
Exactly.
But the Pentagon ultimately said no. They argued that PTSD isn't deliberately caused by enemy action and is, harder to diagnose objectively.
Right.
But looking at it through the lens of virtue, the real debate wasn't medical at all, was it? It was a deep philosophical dispute about what we are actually honoring. Is the medal just for shedding physical blood, or is it honoring the virtue of sacrifice?
Exactly.
Do you have to bleed physically to prove your character, or does bleeding mentally for your country count just as much?
It shows that we cannot separate justice from our judgments about what virtues are worthy of honor. And the brutal truth is, sometimes choosing virtue comes at an unimaginable cost.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and incredibly heartbreaking. Think about Petty Officer Marcus Luttrell and his Navy SEAL team in Afghanistan in June 2005.
The lone survivor story.
Right. They were on a secret reconnaissance mission searching for a Taliban leader near the Pakistan border. Suddenly, 2 Afghan farmers with 100 bleeding goats stumbled right onto their position. With them was a boy about 14 years old.
And the Afghans were unarmed. But the SEAL team knew that if they let them go, there was a massive risk these goat herds would alert the Taliban to the Americans' exact location.
And the SEALs didn't have any rope to tie them up.
Right. So the agonizing choice was this: execute the 3 unarmed civilians in cold blood to protect the mission and themselves, or let them go and risk a deadly firefight.
One of Luttrell's comrades argued forcefully to kill them, saying it was the only logical military decision. But Luttrell was torn. He later wrote that his Christian soul wouldn't allow him to execute unarmed men in cold blood.
So he chose virtue.
He cast the deciding vote to release them. It was a choice rooted entirely in his internal sense of virtue.
And the consequences were devastating. An hour and a half later, the SEALs were surrounded by over 100 Taliban fighters. In the ensuing firefight, all 3 of Littrell's comrades were killed.
Just awful.
Furthermore, a U.S. helicopter that flew in to try and rescue them was shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade, killing all 16 soldiers on board. Littrell was the sole survivor.
Looking back, Littrell actually condemned his own decision. Given the 19 American lives lost, he said he should have killed the goatherds. He let the utilitarian math, the sheer number of lives lost, overwhelm his initial choice of virtue.
It's such a heavy burden.
I mean, essentially, Littrell was the man standing on the bridge with the runaway trolley. He refused to push the man off the bridge. He refused to murder the innocent goatherds. But the failure to do so resulted in the deaths of all his men.
It tragically highlights the massive limitation of those clean, philosophical hypotheticals. In the trolley problem, you are guaranteed the outcome. You know that pushing the man will definitely save the 5.
Right, the math is perfect.
Utilitarianism assumes we have godlike omniscience. But in real life, virtue and consequences are shrouded in the fog of war. You don't know what the future holds when you make the choice.
No one does.
As the ancient philosopher Socrates pointed out with his famous allegory of the cave, moral reflection cannot be a solitary pursuit. We can't just sit in the dark and deduce the perfect moral formula on a whiteboard. We have to take our internal principles and relentlessly test them against the chaotic, real-world situations we encounter.
We've gone on a wild journey today to test those principles. I mean, from paying $10 for a bag of ice in Florida, to Wall Street executives defending their millions in bailout bonuses, to the visceral horror of a lifeboat, and finally, to the rugged, bloody mountains of Afghanistan.
And if there's a core takeaway for you, the listener, it's that justice is not a spectator sport. It's not a dusty set of ancient rules you memorize.
No.
It is an active, daily wrestling match between maximizing welfare, respecting individual freedom, and cultivating moral virtue.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, because it builds directly on everything we've just unpacked. We are rapidly moving into an era where we rely on algorithms and artificial intelligence to make decisions for us.
Right.
Algorithms decide who gets a bank loan, who gets paroled, and how medical resources are distributed.
Which means we have to ask ourselves, are we just secretly programming Jeremy Bentham's cold utilitarian math into our modern machines?
Exactly. Think about a self-driving car. If that car's brakes fail, and it has to make a split-second decision between hitting 5 pedestrians in a crosswalk or swerving into a concrete wall and killing you, the driver, how will it be coded?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Which version of justice will the engineers program into that machine's operating system? Will it protect the individual's right to life, or will it do the math and sacrifice you for the greater good? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into your own moral compass. Keep questioning the operating system, and we will see you next time.